Hello, YouTubers out there. Basically, what I'm doing is a crossover video response that kind of started on my channel, the Howlermouse, where I did a video on some, crossovers. And instead of getting into that, I will just put up a link. And out of that, three people did more or less a video response or their own kind of video, and CaptainCummings did one here on the CCC channel, and it was his Avengers Log 4, I believe, from last week, and that's a series of videos he's doing every, I guess, weekend or so, where he's reviewing an Avengers comic book all the way up to the Avengers movie being released. So one of the books I mentioned in my video that he ended up coming back and doing was Avengers 85. Okay? Now, what was going on here, to give you a little backstory real quick, I'll put a link on here, I guess, for the CaptainCummings Avengers log so you can see where all this is led to. Probably about, I don't know, maybe a year and a half in Avengers number 70 here, you had the Squadron Sinister pop up. And what this was the Grandmaster had made a bet where he changed the histories in time of 4 individuals in the Marvel Universe, and they ended up becoming homages of 4 DC characters. Hyperion is Superman, Wizard is Flash, Dr. Spectrum is Green Lantern, and Night Owl is Batman. Now, that's where things get a little bit confusing, because when these 2 books came out, they were actually crossovers. This is actually your first Justice League Avengers crossover, and that's what my video kind of explains, are these hidden crossovers. This is Justice League number 87, and I got the number wrong in my video. This is the book that's supposed to be there. And these 2 both came out in February. They both have a date of February, but they came out the same month. Okay, so CaptainCummings has already gone through this one. And what appears in this was the actual Squadron Supreme. Thor and a few, Scarlet Witch and a few other characters end up getting transported. That's kind of ripped up. Transported to another world, and there's a version of the Justice League there. I'll show you a pic just so we can move along here. It was very cool, and back then you didn't have internet, of course. You didn't have fanzines, magazines, anything like that. Yet. I mean, they were probably there, but so these guys became the Squadron Supreme. These guys have quite a history, but you have to be careful, because they would pop up in the Avengers now and then, and you didn't know if it was the Squadron Sinister, here's Avengers 141, or if it was the Squadron Supreme 148. Now, that's what DC did with some it's what Marvel did with some DC characters, is what they did. Okay, before I bore you all to death. Now, those Squadron Sinister guys have a history all of their own. Now, the same month that the Avengers number 85 came out, DC came out with Justice League 87. Justice League 87 had, I guess, a less successful version of homages to Marvel characters. They didn't go on to really have the great success that Squadron Supreme / Sinister did. But basically what we have going on is there's a giant robot that is attacking the League and attacking people, and apparently it went to another world and attacked a few people, and the heroes from that world decided to investigate. So when our Leaguers end up on that world, the world is devastated. I believe they ended up saying it was by nuclear war years later. And we get this version of the Avengers. Okay. Up top there we have Jack Quick. Okay, that would be Quicksilver. Silver Sorceress, who is Scarlet Witch. And let me see if I can get this name right. Wandjina, who is Thor, and he carries a big axe instead of a hammer. I think he's an Australian storm god of Australian Aborigine god of rain, Then we get Blue Jay, and it took me forever to figure out. I knew Blue Jay was. I couldn't tell if he was a Hank Pym or the Wasp or a cross between two, and I could kick myself because the only version of Hank Pym that could fly that I'm aware of was Yellow Jacket. So at the time of the Avengers, I think this is 1970, it was Yellow Jacket. Okay, so these guys go on and they talk about how the world more or less is in total atomic war, and then alien beings started coming after him, and then all of a sudden this robot came after them. So that's our mandatory crossover. So here, this is more or less really the first Justice League of Avengers team up, if you will. Big 2-page spread. Just use your imagination. And they all make up. They all are yelling, "Let's," Blue Jay's room said, "Let's all stop the fighting." Talking to everybody, and everybody shakes hands and hugs and becomes big buddies, which is kind of funny because I guess we're all friends now, but sorry about your world being destroyed by atomic war. Now moving on, if you've stuck with me, in 1987 we had the great Justice League book come out. James DeMantis, Keith Giffen, Kevin Maguire, and it had Terry Austin inking the first issue, and a guy named Al Gordon picked up. But they reintroduced these characters, and their whole point is they attacked the country of Billia, I think that's what it's called, and they're going to get rid of all the nuclear wars because Jack B. Quick is now known as Captain Speed, and he's dead. He does not really show up in this book. I think maybe there's a little flashback, or they're standing over his grave or something. Okay, so they got some mileage out of that. And then next thing you know, what happened was they had no world to go back to. This really slimy Saddam Hussein kind of guy comes out. He's like a used car salesman. Walks out, shakes their hands like, "Come talk to us. Be part of our country." And really having nowhere else to go, that's kind of where it ends. They're going to be working for this country. League's told to get out of the country. And then in issue 17, they pop up, and Wagenda is more or less dead, and he's being used. He's like this zombie with all these metal parts coming out, and somebody, he's probably getting remote controlled, and he makes this big explosion. Not really worth getting into reviewing, But that's not the end of this world, okay? Giffen and DeMantis sort of started really taking off with this, Keith Giffen and James DeMantis. And we ended up getting Justice League Europe 15. I'll come back to this cover in a minute. 16. 17. 18. And 19. And Justice League Europe more or less got their butts handed to them. What these were the villains that it's revealed that they more or less blew up the world, is kind of what they're getting after the nuclear weapons and everything. So, as you can see down there, we have a Doctor Doom type. This is more or less, I assume, a Sabretooth type. We have a Hellraiser-inspired Dr. Octopus. Dr. Diehard, which I just love that name, is Magneto. And we have Dreamslayer, who is Dormammu from Doctor Strange. See if I left anybody out there. Okay, so they're called the Extremis, and this was an awesome story. I really enjoyed it. Okay, but what is revealed, spoiler alert, is Dreamslayer is the only one that's real. The rest of them are robots from an amusement park. So flash forward maybe about a year or so, summer '91, we get Justice League Quarterly. Number 3, great art, great little story, but the Justice League, going back to that world that are homages of Marvel. I guess they're going to, I can't remember the plot, maybe they're trying to stop the nuclear war, but they end up going back in the past also. And they end up meeting a man who more or less is Walt Disney. I'm trying to remember what his name is. And all these robots are being made at the amusement park that he used to own, which is more or less Disneyland / Disney World. I mean, it's coming off sounds sillier than what it was. I mean, it was a humorous book, but it was really, really good. and I cannot find the guy. But anyway, they kind of expand on their homage there to Marvel, and this is a great book. Okay, we have two of them fighting, and you have a Wolverine with Mickey Mouse ears fighting someone who I think is the Sandman. Oh no, he's Claw. I'm sorry, they changed the colors. That's Claw. Instead of red and purple, he's green and yellow. You know, and Wolverine. And everybody's really shrunk down on this world so that they don't mess up time or anything. He wants to go back and maybe try to change things. And he talked Kilowatt. It's coming back to me. Kilowatt to transform to this world. But I think they use some Ray Palmer technology there, White Dwarf, and so they're shrunk when they get there. There's an homage to Iron Man. And everybody's trying to figure out what's going on. And they show more and more of their heroes. As she's talking in flashback of, you know, the Avengers. The one up front's definitely Spider-Man and looks like a Cyclops, Moondragon maybe. Redheaded guy, I'm going to assume maybe a Hercules. Who knows? You know, it looks like that could be some kind of Wonder Man. But, you know, it doesn't really get into them. I mean, they had very few villains to rival them. And then nuclear war hit. And we get some names of the Extremists. They go over who their greatest, you know, villains were. And I'll go down the line for you. Dr. Doom was Lord Havoc. Dr. Diehard's Magneto. Gorgon was Dr. Octopus. Tracer was, of course, Sabretooth and Dreamslayer, Dormammu. Trying to find a really good pick, and we'll end this here. And here we go. We have the Avengers. They're back in time before the world became nuclear war. But you see Giant Man, Captain Speed, and Iron Man type. Of course, there's Hawkeye. And I don't see Blue Jay, the Silver Sorceress, but, you know, you kind of get the idea. You know, they talk about anti-mutant hysteria, and Iron Man, the guy who's Iron Man needs a chest plate because of his heart. You know, you got to wear it all the time.